Hey everyone, this is Terry Mitchell with the Voice on Fire interview series. For those of you who may not have been following along over the last 18 months or so, I've had the pleasure to interview some pretty amazing people from both locally here in Australia and in locations around the globe. The people that I choose to interview are those that I consider are making a difference either locally or in the global village. And my guest today is Elvis Summers, who is over in, I believe you are in Los Angeles, Elvis.
That's correct.
Fantastic. Well, welcome to Voice on Fire. And I would love to start out by going through what it is I usually go through is a few formal questions to get this conversation happening, because I want to introduce people to what it is you do. So share
Sure.
with us, what is it that you are doing? What's the project that you are working on?
So basically, I build tiny houses for the homeless, and by tiny, I mean very small. In most situations, it's just a room. It's like an emergency shelter, and there are unfortunately countless humans on the planet that all over that are experiencing homelessness.
Mhm. Yeah.
So there's a lot of houses to build.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Now, in terms of tiny, give people an indication. You say that they're very tiny and they're just a room. Give people an indication by comparison. Sort of what sort of size would you compare it to, like in a regular house?
Okay, well, forgive me because America's the only place that I don't know uses imperial
That's okay.
measurements
That's
and
okay.
whatnot. So I don't know
Yeah.
meters, but it's probably the most average you'll find is maybe like a 10 by 10, 10 feet by
Hmm.
10 feet,
Hmm.
or a 12 by 12.
Okay.
Um, the sizes will roughly vary. You might get something that's not so square, a 10 by 12, or so on. But
Okay.
that's generally about the size. I make them even smaller at 6 feet by 8 feet.
Okay.
Um, so it just depends on the place and the situation.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And what's inside the actual space? Like, obviously, we imagine that there's got to be sleeping quarters, but do they come with any other features? What do you put inside them?
Well, I mean, really, it just depends. They can come with almost nothing.
Hmm.
Just the four walls and a roof to keep you safe.
Yeah.
All the way up to small. Some will have heating, like a heater and an air conditioner. Our summers here get pretty hot sometimes, so
Yeah.
we can get triple digits.
Hmm.
Over 100 degrees Fahrenheit, and yeah, you're cooking.
Mm.
At that. So sometimes we'll place cots or beds if it's a larger unit. Bookshelves, a lamp. Um, but a lot of times, personally, I like to leave the canvas more open,
Hmm.
just to give that little, I don't know, psychological side to things where, like I don't have to sleep in it. So the person that does, it's open to them, what would you like on your walls? Like, do you want a bookshelf? Some like to sleep on the floor, others like a bed. So
Yeah.
it just depends. I like to keep it open.
Yeah, yeah, and that in itself is reflective of a couple of points you've raised there. Sometimes they are just blank four walls. They're a roof and something to keep them safe. That whole concept of safety, we're thinking about and talking about people who, by various reasons, whether it be personal choice or circumstance that has led them to the situation, they're literally sleeping in environments that are really not safe at all, under bridges, on benches, out in parks, under cars, wherever they can think that's going to protect them in some way. They don't have that sense of safety. When you're engaging with these people, I want to sort of start with that first story that got you kind of, I suppose, thinking along this line. What's it been like, the response from the people that you're helping? How do they engage with you, and what sort of responses do you get from them?
Generally, it takes a little time for people to warm up to you.
Hmm.
Most people that are sleeping rough or on the streets, they've just been lied to so many times and offered so much false hope that their walls are up naturally. So you kind of have to break through that a little bit, and get them to trust you. Let them know, hey, look, I'm never going to lie to you. I'm going to tell you how it is straight up. And but I do care that you're here, and I'd like to help. Once people open up a little bit, or some people are open right away. I mean, almost everybody is very interested and willing to put in work to get out of that situation. The key is providing either a real solution or a real pathway for them to get out of there. The traditional shelter system doesn't work, and it hasn't worked in decades. So when people are offered that kind of help, a lot of people turn it down because they know, look, that's, in a best case scenario, that's going to give me, anywhere from, excuse me, 30 days to 90 days, and then loop me right back around, and leave me right here in a gutter again. So.
Yeah. Yeah, so in terms of these little shelters, I've obviously read your bio, and we were sort of sharing information before coming to the point of this interview. So I'd really like to ask it in terms of the usual questions that I ask. We know what you're doing in basic terms. You're building these emergency shelters for people that are considered, just by everyday standards, to be homeless. So you're building them. Why did you start? What was the motivation or the impetus to start? And you mentioned there was a lady by the name of Smokie that you met. Maybe perhaps start from that journey.
Yeah, indeed. Smokie was her name. She was an older Black woman that lived in my old neighborhood in South LA, and she was great. She was the nicest person. She came by asking for recyclables. I got to know her over a few months and found out that she was sleeping face first in the dirt, next to somebody's house down the block. And it just bothered me. It really got under my skin. I mean, I think something like that should get under anybody's skin, but it really got under my skin because everybody in the neighborhood knew her. They liked her. They'd say hi to her every day. Hi, Smokey, but then nobody cared at, nighttime. It's like, oh, well, whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, it just really bugs me. And that's really what kind of launched me into this whole thing. When I was building her house and other people started asking if I could build them one, as they had nowhere to go. When I put that first video up that went viral, people started giving me money to make more. And I just, said, if people will donate money for me to help other people, I'll do it all day long. And I've pretty much been trying to do that ever since.
Yeah. And just touching on Smokey's story, and what you said there, just that in itself breaks my heart, because it's like, almost as you say, once the doors of our own homes are shut, we kind of forget the rest of the world. We don't kind of want to get involved. And there's a whole lot of reasons why people don't feel that they can or want to get involved with someone else's story. So the fact that you did, I think, kudos to you. That's something that really, to me, speaks volumes about what potential we all have if only we take that step. In terms of engaging with Smokie, did she ever say, and did you ask, and how did the conversation happen to determine that maybe an emergency shelter or tiny structure would be something that she'd want? How did that conversation come about?
Actually, it's quite simple. We were hanging out out front of my apartment, and I just asked her. I said, Smokie, how would you feel if I built you a little tiny house? She just turned and looked at me and said, when's it gonna be ready?
Oh, lovely. That's lovely.
Yeah.
So she didn't have a moment of doubt or a bit of hesitation that you may be one of those people telling lies or letting her down. She just knew that you would be the person that would do it.
I think so. I mean, she never mentioned so. And we had already kind of built a rapport over the previous few months anyway. And every time she'd come by, we'd talk and hang out, and I'd give her some lunch or food or something. And so I think she knew I was serious.
Yeah, well, that's
so
really...
and the house that I built her was really micro. I mean, it should barely even be considered a tiny house.
Mm-hmm.
It was roughly 4 feet by 8 feet, 4 feet wide, 8 feet long, and it really wasn't that tall. It was maybe 5 feet tall. Um, it it was essentially a real tiny box, but I built it to look like a house, and put trim around the windows and cedar siding, and gave her a steel reinforced front door, just like we have on many houses here, and she had her own lock, and I mean that's all it took. I think she said she slept a day and a half straight
Oh,
because she hadn't been able to sleep so good, knowing that she was safe, and it was right in front of my apartment too, so I kept an eye on her.
yeah, and I think that brings us to a really important point that you've experienced in this journey. Firstly, how long have you been sort of on this pathway doing this project? Obviously, it started with one, and it's obviously progressed. How long has that been?
That's roughly been about 6 years now.
Oh, wow. Okay, so it has been quite some time.
Yeah, it's been a crazy journey, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's that journey I'm interested in, to sort of share with people some of the obstacles we can be up against when we have, I suppose, the intention to do a good deed and to progress it into something meaningful, and some of the obstacles you can be up against. You've had some issues with city not being particularly obliging about what you're doing.
That's correct. Yeah, back in the beginning, in the first year, well, first 2 years, it was pretty intense. The city, I don't think they understood what I was trying to do, and really just didn't care to listen. I mean, Los Angeles is the second largest city in our country here. It's a big place. I mean, it's a sea of people as far as the eye can see. So I can imagine that's a lot to manage. But we butted heads really good. I mean, at its at its worst, I had to put on a bulletproof vest for a year because I got death threats, and it was a pretty crazy ride.
You're serious?
So
You literally wore a bulletproof vest?
every day.
Oh my God.
They're the first day or two is kind of cool because you hear, I mean, we're in Hollywood, and it's kind of like you feel like well, maybe I'm just like an actor, doing an action scene. It's great, but when it really sets in, why you're wearing it every day, and man, they're really uncomfortable.
Oh gosh, yeah. That's actually quite frightening to think that in order to do something that really has powerful positive repercussions in society, you've got people actually threatening your life.
It still makes no sense to me. I mean, as one of my friends at the time in LAPD, they essentially said, "Look, you're basically messing with billions of dollars, by throwing a wrench in the works, and they don't like that." And so I still just, it's like I wanted to help people at the bottom that are, that have really fallen down, and somehow that made me the jerk. Like it just doesn't make sense. So it I had a few threats from some gangs on the streets, and that made sense to me. I mean, in one hand, it doesn't make sense, but I could wrap my head around that more. It was still a horrible thing that they were doing, because basically what they'll do is veterans, many get pensions and and funds for their service, and it comes on a debit card. And these gang members in the streets, they know this, and so they'll come every month and they'll roll these veterans, and rob them and take their money at gunpoint. And so a lot of gangs respect veterans, and they just, that's not their thing. But there's so many here in this country that many of them don't. They don't care. I mean, they'd sell their moms, and they just do really bad things. And so it was those, unfortunately, that I ran into. And when I rescued a few veterans off the street, they were like, "Hey, that's our revenue that you're taking." So
Wow.
that's where the threats came from. So I'm trying to keep it as PG as I can. That there were
Oh yeah, yeah.
stronger words used
Oh,
in the
imagine.
conversations.
Yeah.
So when I'm pausing, I'm
Yeah.
trying to leave out the bad words. But
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it was but I mean that made more sense at least. I mean these guys are living their rough lifestyle and doing their gang activities, and if I'm gonna come in and take rescue all the vets out of the street, then they're gonna lose all their money, and it just the mechanics of it I at least makes sense. But
Yeah.
for a city, threats from a city, like, it makes no sense. So but that was at its worst, and it's the first couple of years were very raw. After a while though, we kind of kissed and made up, if you
Okay.
will, and
Yeah.
the city finally came and called me, and we sat at a table and really got to work and started trying to work together to build tiny house communities and really start helping people.
Okay.
And unfortunately, I'm still trying to sit at the table and get them to do something. So far, they've kind of taken some of the ideas and perverted it, and given all the work to some of their friends, and charged millions of dollars to build some tiny houses. But we're still at it. I got I'm working hard on a new packet right now that goes. I don't even know what day it is. COVID's I don't know if everyone's got COVID brain over there, but it's like a spinning compass here. We're all just like, all right, it's Tuesday, so it's our Tuesday, and Thursday it goes there by Thursday, and hopefully that'll bring all of us back to the table again, and we'll actually make some progress this time.
Yeah, wow. That is a really intense story, though. And I understand, obviously, that the worst of that did take place in the first couple of years. So, in terms of the overall, literally the threats, and from some of the more seedy areas of town, are you still able to progress with providing that tiny house or emergency shelter to those people, or have you had to kind of rethink how you do it? Have you moved to a different location? How has all that kind of impacted the progress that you've been making?
It impacted it a lot, because see, from the beginning and still to now, it's the houses are meant to be in small communities. There's other things that people need, like showers and laundry and kitchens, bathroom, all this stuff. And it's just more cost effective to do it in small communities where those things are communal. And it's already been done. It's been done for a few decades now in various places around the world, with proven success. So that's how the model works. I was never able to even get the city to really answer the phone, or answer the door, if you will, in the beginning. So I just went out and started building these houses and replacing the tents on the streets with the houses. And I stuck them right on bridges, going over freeways so everybody could see them. And that initially is what kind of stirred the city up against me. But without being able to do it properly, it really does slow things down, because in the beginning, the city rewrote the law twice, barring me from putting them on public land. See, the houses themselves, they couldn't figure out how to make the houses illegal. So they figured that they could make it illegal for me to put them anywhere.
Yeah.
Unless it's private property or church property.
Yeah.
So I'm unfortunately, they never rewrote the law undoing that.
Yeah.
And so technically I'm still barred in Los Angeles from placing the homes. I mean, and on one hand, it's they were never meant to just be stuck out in the street, and they don't work that way. But yeah, it really does slow things down. So having to hunt around for private property or hidden places to put the houses, man, it really slows things down.
Yeah.
So to this day, we're having more luck just putting them on church properties. Finding churches. There's a billion churches here, and so we're trying to find churches that'll basically sponsor one person or a few people that we can put the houses on their property, and the church members, kind of lend a hand and help take care of the people. I've even got a house 3 doors down from my apartment, tucked around a corner here, with a older woman living in that one.
Yeah.
So really, anywhere I can find, I'll put them. But the plan is still putting them in larger communities. That's where they need to be. Someday soon, hopefully, if I can raise the money privately, I'll purchase land and build the communities myself. Until those type of funds come through, it's much more of a collaborative effort. I've primarily, because I live here, focused on Los Angeles, but I've been at this 6 years, and LA is still dragging their feet. So although I will still pursue Los Angeles, I am going to be reaching out to anywhere that is willing to put in the work and help, because I know there's a lot of other places that will want to do something and take a viable solution that works. And so that's really my path forward now in the future, is to really I'd like to get busy building a lot more than we are now. So
yeah. And do you do it all on your own, or do you have like a team of people that are helping you?
I have a few core people that answer the call when needed, but otherwise, for the most part, it's just me.
Mm-hmm.
But I have been blessed with almost an endless supply of volunteers. So anytime that there is a build or an event going on, there's a lot of people. I mean, there's been people willing to fly from the other side of the country all the way over here to come help, and I'm always like excited, and just blown away by that. It's really cool. So hopefully we can make that happen on a much larger scale.
Yeah.
I'd even like to make it out to Australia one of these days, and maybe build a few out there. The fans I've had there have always been so nice, and I mean, honestly, it makes me want to move there. So maybe I'll show up there one day and build a few.
That would be very cool. We have a really active emerging tiny house community here, in terms of the regular tiny house that's designed for permanent or temporary residence, meaning it's got all the bells and whistles with kitchens and bathrooms and sleeping quarters. So they're intended to be the proper tiny house. As I know, America's got a fairly big following in the tiny house movement. So in terms of tiny houses, I personally myself love tiny houses. I don't want to go down to the 400 square feet. I think that's a tiny, tiny house for me. Going from a regular everyday suburban house down to something that's small for me personally, perhaps a little too small. But in terms of shelters and being able to supply that sort of safety and security to someone who perhaps for some reason just can't have that, doesn't have access to it, whatever the resources situation is for them. One of the questions that came to my mind as you were sharing that story is, do these dwellings that you create become, I suppose, for the one person, or if they're on, say, church land, for example, can they be so that, if someone needs somewhere, there's one that's the property, it's sitting there, or are they sort of all taken up? Sort of, I don't mean in terms of a revolving door kind of scenario where anyone can show up and there's a bed to sleep in, so to speak. But do you allocate them to one person, or can they be sort of a bit more communal in themselves?
Generally, they're allocated to a person or persons, but the idea is somewhat of a revolving door where that person kind of gets fixed up in life, gets a good night's rest, many good nights rest, and works on bettering their lives. When they're able to move up to the next best thing, then they would pay that house forward to the next person who is ready to get off the street. So that's generally how it's supposed to work. But I mean, it would be amazing if we had enough resources allocated to help people in that way, where if somebody on any given night needed a place, there was somewhere for them to go.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned in earlier parts of this story that you do have some people that make donations and help to fund what you're doing. how are you funding this project? Like, what helps you to, because materials obviously can't be cheap. So how are you actually funding it? How do you come by the materials?
Either by donation, material donation, or monetary. Mostly it's been monetary, and that's the only way I'm able to keep helping, is getting people. I'm starting to work with some new people that like, there's basically a plan and a system that will generate more funds, doing land trusts, and something that will help pay for itself and keep things affordable, and bring money in. So that'll change the game a little bit, a lot of ways, but otherwise it's just finding kind-hearted souls that are, have a few bucks, that are willing to, help us help more people.
And perhaps forgive my cynicism, but if this is taking place in Los Angeles, you're kind of within cooey distance, if you to use an Australian term, you're within cooey distance of Hollywood, one of the wealthiest places on the planet. Is there perhaps no opportunity to tap into that kind of market and get some of the celebrities to maybe feel, kind of more generous in that area? Is that something that is possible?
Anything's possible. And honestly, I feel like I've been fairly close to maybe some celebrities helping, getting on board. It's never panned out, but some people are just looking for, the photo op and the, something that's trending. Back when I started this in the first couple of years, I was very trending. And although people are like, hey, I love what you're doing, it's like, I saw that yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, we have the most billionaires here, the most famous people in the world. I think we also have the most sick people in the world.
Yeah.
So it's difficult, but anything is possible. I guess it just takes the right one to see me somewhere and reach out and say, hey, I want to get involved and I want to help you.
Yeah, and get properly involved as well, with not just the photo opportunity, but the real work. It does take a special person to want to do this. So in terms of I think our audience here has got a bit more of an understanding about what it is you do. I mean, what you really are doing, and it's a major social and community contribution to try and help people. As you say, they're at the bottom. No one that I've ever met chooses to sleep rough. My background is in psychiatric nursing, so I've worked in industries and services where people have done it very, very rough. I myself went through a few moments of, when I say moments, I'm talking months, of homelessness, where my circumstances changed so significantly that I couldn't afford to put a roof over my head. So I was sleeping on, mattresses on a friend's floor or someone's house. I was just always trying to find somewhere. My car was filled with my own personal belongings, and it was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. So the heartbreak is real. The loss of sense of identity is real. The feeling of failure, the feeling of not being worthy, all of those different emotions, they are all there, and you feel every one of them. And not sleeping properly is a real issue. And my heart goes out to anybody who is in that situation, because it is never really, it's not by choice. It's kind of like choosing between a rock and a hard place. Your circumstances in the family environment, if that's where they came from, often are not tolerable. And yet, as you say, they may end up in some sort of a community service, and it kind of just is like a revolving door. You're in, you go somewhere, you get this help, and then after a while you're back on the street. And there's no real support. And unfortunately, some of them either end up in psychiatric services or in prisons or in hospitals. A lot of the time, there's no real place for them to go. So what you're doing, you're seeing a problem, you're offering a solution. It's not often someone comes along that wants to do that and do so just seriously because you want to make a difference. And I applaud you for that. I think we need more people that recognize that it only takes one person to make a difference. And unfortunately, you've chosen an area of wanting to help where you've just come up against massive brick walls. And I applaud you again for even persisting through this, because, you know, it's easy to give up, and to not give up is the thing that takes the most energy and effort and just sheer will to succeed in, and not because you want the bells and whistles of, you know, fame and celebrity, but because you want to do good and leave a lasting legacy. We understand more about what you're doing and, you know, the who you're doing it for. Is there anything more, I suppose, to your story about the why you're doing it? What kind of really led you to this? Obviously, Smokie was a good impetus. What is there anything that led you to doing this?
I guess I just like helping people. I always have. You know, when it comes to at least homelessness, like, we're going backwards as a species on this planet, and we're repeating the same mistakes, you know, for thousands of years. It's you know, we can do better. And I mean, nobody should be homeless ever. I mean, they just shouldn't. And there's no reason for people to be homeless. Like, there's enough to go around on this planet. I mean, although there's not for many people, that's the problem, is that, you know, there's enough on this planet that, you know, there shouldn't be a gap like that. People shouldn't be starving and without the basic necessities. So I don't know. I've just always had a soft spot for wanting to change that. So hopefully, in the works that I do and the people I help, hopefully I can inspire more people to do the same and get up, you know, and I mean, we have to teach each other better ways in all kinds of avenues in our lives, you know, in order for things to get better. It's not going to just, you know, magically fix itself. And you know, we're all gonna go down if we continuously just put the blinders on, you know, and always try to escape, you know, like, oh, this is very hard, I'm just going to escape, you know, let me watch this movie, or, you know, dive into something and ignore the problems. So
yeah,
I don't know if that answers the question, but
no, it's more just gaining insight, because really, at the end of the day, and you've just really mentioned it, it's about finding that piece of ourselves that says, I can't accept this. There needs to be change. There needs to be something done about a problem that, at the end of the day, there's resources everywhere, but it's just the inequity. It's not being shared equally for, you know, the people who are in need. And as you say, it's a pretty backward step when we can't even provide basic housing, basic accommodation and safety and security to our own community. So I think people like yourself are taking that step. And the reason that I ask these questions of the people that I interview is I want to remind our audience that, you know, you, Elvis, you're an everyday person who saw a problem and decided that you just couldn't accept that, and that you could do, at least try to do something. And in putting that effort out there, you discovered a solution that seemed to have a workable potential. And in doing that, that's really what I want for the audience to take away. Every time they listen to one of these interviews, a person can make a difference, one person. And, you know, I consider you're one of those people that's out there making a difference. And, you know, I think it's important we acknowledge the people that are making the difference. And I'm sure that the people that you've helped, in terms of the Smokies of the world, have been really grateful just to know that one other human being out there really does have a heart and does care. So I think it's important we acknowledge those things are important. You know, it's up to us. And I think if we can all take away from conversations like this, that if there's something that you've witnessed in your community or in the world that makes you really uncomfortable, look for a solution, look for a way through it, find the answers, start collaborating with people, find different ways to bring solutions, because there are people out there who need that help. So is there anything else that you'd like to add?
I mean, just on what you were saying, that it's you know, if we want to live in a better community, you know, or a better society. We have to build it. I mean, it's that simple. So I thank you for the support and the kind words, and it's true. One person can make a difference, and there's no reason that you can't be that person.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So in terms of people finding your project or being able to look it up, for anyone who does listen either to the podcast or watch this interview, the details about how to follow up with Elvis in regards to the project, find out more about what he's doing. I'll get the links from you, Elvis, and we'll put those into the descriptions for both the YouTube interview and also the podcast. So in terms of where people can find you, where will they be able to locate you? Are you on the regular social media? How do they get hold of you?
Well, I am. I'm all over the place. The website is thetinyhouse.org. They can go there and find me there, or you can also just Google my name, Elvis Summers. That's probably the easiest way to find all my different social medias. You know, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. But I apologize. Updates are very slow. It's still me doing everything, so I can't keep up. I get like pummeled with messages, and you know, Facebook messages is probably the worst. I'll probably never see it. But you know, if people need to get in contact with me, they can get a hold of me through the website. That's probably the easiest. Yeah. But yeah, I'm out there a lot, and I try to update as often as I can. And maybe one of these days I'll get some help with that, and we'll have more updates.
Yeah, that would be great. So if anyone's listening and you feel that you'd like to be able to provide that help as a volunteer, helping Elvis to make sure that he's got regular updates and the ways that people can stay in contact with him, if there's anything you want to do to help out with the project, or if you know somebody that could contribute to that project and make it really come to life, by all means, reach out, don't hesitate, because it does take a community to raise a child, so to speak, or a tribe to raise a child. And I think this is one of those children, if we were to put it into a concept, this is something that needs to be raised. It's something that needs to be germinated and nurtured and given life, because at the end of the day, it does come back to humanity needs to help humanity. And if we don't, you know, what generations going forward, what have they got to really embrace and look forward to? If they're coming from the way things are now, we need to make differences. We need to make changes. We need to inspire the coming generations to take action and be responsible, because, you know, what hope have they got otherwise?
If we don't, there's no good future for anybody. If we continue to disregard and place no value on human life, there won't be a future.
Yeah. So that's why it's important that people like yourself and anyone who's watching this, if you feel that you've got this need to help, whether it be to create your own project or to reach out and just start contributing to the greater good within the community that you're in or across the global village, today's that day. Take the action. Today, you just never know where it might lead you. I mean, Elvis has been going at this for 6 years, and I applaud you so much. That it's just such persistence, and it's so important that when you really find that passion, keep going with it. Elvis, it's been an absolute pleasure talking with you today. Thank you so much for your time. And
thanks for having me.
Yeah, I look forward to hearing more about how those projects are progressing and the success that you end up having with City. So if anyone from the city of Los Angeles is paying attention to this, it's time. It's time. Let's get this happening. And anywhere across America, I mean, if there's other places across America that are paying attention to this, please, let's just get this happening. Let's make this something that we can be proud of. And I just want to congratulate you all. What a great thing to do.
Thank you. Much appreciated. I appreciate the support, and I'm just getting started.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time.
Bye.